I got over 2,200. So
You got over 2,200?
Yeah, so
Wow.
I'm about
Wow.
15 in the high 1,500s out of 140,000 or so, which is in the top 1% in AFL Fantasy there. So I want to make sure I continue my momentum there, hopefully eventually get inside the bottom 1,000. I think my opportunity for the car, the extra dough, I think that's gone. I've had a few... Not poor weeks, but you judge yourself by high standards if you're playing the game properly. And
that's right.
I don't know. There's certainly some very good players. I mean, there's even though I'm ranked 1,600 or a bit lower than that, there's my difference between the top is about 700.
Wow.
So I consider myself to be knowledgeable about football. Imagine this guy, who's at the top. I mean, he's just in a league of his own. The Einstein of AFL Fantasy.
Einstein of AFL Fantasy. Look, I did okay this week. I'm looking at some people in my league. There's someone here who got 2,354, which is just ridiculously insane. They must have done very, very well.
We have to mention, though, that Supercoach scores higher than AFL Fantasy.
They are.
So you got 2,186.
86, which is not a bad score at all. In fact, I won all of my leagues. I got the highest score in all of my leagues. And I'm currently doing all right in the rankings. But a couple of players who highlighted my round this round is a man called Nick Newman. He is from Sydney. He's a defender. He was quite emphatic in... Sydney's win against North Melbourne. This was a guy who was, I think, called up, last minute. He scored a incredible 151 Supercoach points.
Oh, my gosh.
In Supercoach, that's a ridiculously big
And
score.
the Apple boy, so he bided his time in Sydney before coming into the actual team. He has a wealth of talent, and even during the season when he was playing well, I know I'm talking about, I think he debuted against the Western Bulldogs. So that was a great introduction there. He played well, eventually found his way out of the team for whatever reason. John Longmire likes to have players... Well, I think his philosophy is a bit different compared to other coaches. For instance, Tom Mitchell, who's now exploding on the scene... with Hawthorn. I tell you what, Brownlow smoky alert. I wouldn't mind that. But so Tom Mitchell, even though he had the potential to rack up the possessions, obviously he had that massive game in the twos up in Sydney over there. One of the most possessions ever. But
unbelievable.
John Longmire didn't really bring him in some games, and he was so talented.
Didn't he get 60 disposals one day?
That's the one I'm referring to.
He amassed the disposals. He's an absolute magnet. I suppose the biggest problem for him this season so far has been he is getting the disposals. Absolutely no doubt about that. When Hawthorn were losing those big games and he was getting 38 plus disposals, he wasn't using them too effectively, and so as a result his scores weren't amazing. But this week, 36 disposals in a very, very nice game against the Brisbane Lions. Got a very, very well-deserved score. So, but looking at the scores in Supercoach, and it would have reflected in AFL Fantasy as well, a lot of the big scores have came from younger players or players that have established themselves in the last few years. You look at some of the youngsters like Tom Mitchell, 135, Zach Merritt as well, who I just absolutely love being a Bomber supporter. He was absolutely sensational. He got 33 disposals. I think it's about the fourth or fifth time this year he's gotten over 30, and I think he's going on some crazy record right now, almost beating, of course, Josh Kennedy, who gets huge disposals. I think Zach Merritt's on a bit of a roll at the moment as far as getting 20 disposals or more in every single game he's been playing, I think, or 14 or 15 consecutive games. So he's a freak. If you don't have him already, get him in. However, he's priced now quite considerably more expensive. He started the season, I think, at a pretty decent price, but now he's right up, particularly in Supercoach, around the same price as Paddy Dangerfield. In fact, he is more expensive than Paddy Dangerfield right now.
Well, I mean, Paddy Dangerfield is, not in the best of form.
No,
we have to take that into consideration.
We do.
Zach Merritt is certainly on the way up. He has been since last year, winning the best and fairest at the Essendon Football Club. He's certainly one of the rising stars of the game.
He is.
This is a big statement, but I'm talking... Not in the same league yet, but he's up there as up there with Marcus Bontempelli.
He certainly is.
because he just racks up the possessions and he's so consistent week upon week.
And he's very clean as well.
He's really thriving with the likes of Dyson Heppel, Jobe Watson. He's definitely a player that opposition teams have to put attention to, because you can't just focus on Heppel when you have Merritt, who's as quick and who just racks up the ball around the ground. And as a left footer, he can be really lethal with that left foot. So,
and we should also mention Supercoach, of course, the 1%ers are absolutely pivotal in the game. And 12 tackles this week as well, Zach Merritt. So Zach Merritt not only is a ball magnet, but he's an absolute tackling machine. And if you can get those really high tackles as well, you're going to win games for your club. So he is an absolute superstar. Now, one thing we've got to consider this week, John, of course, this week is, of course, the bye week just for two teams. So, of course, the teams returning from China, they need a little bit of a rest. They might have had a bit of dodgy food and whatnot like that. You can't drink the water in China. So shout out to our man Liam. We just steer clear of the water, buddy, and don't have a shower for the next couple of weeks. But yes, of course, Gold Coast and Port Adelaide will have their byes this week. Of course, we've got to start planning as traders. I'm pretty sure in Fantasy and in Supercoach you will get an extra trade, which will help you get some players in and out.
Yeah, you have 2 trades, in fact, per week in AFL Fantasy.
There you go, 3 trades in Supercoach, so it's quite a large number of trades. You do need them, trust me.
Use them wisely, though.
Your best, I'm pretty sure in Supercoach, your best 18 players will be counted, so not the best 22. So it does make it a tiny bit easier for you. Despite that, of course, I'm going to have Gary Ablett on the bench this week, and you might have to cop some zeros around the ground if you can play around with those trades. So this week's a little bit of a hard one, but are you going to be preparing for the bye, or are you just going to cop some zeros?
Well, I'm not a big fan of copying the zeros, otherwise known as donuts.
Which means essentially you can say goodbye to the car.